Hello guys, today we will be talking about What If Naruto Sent Back in Time by Shingami Part 7. If you enjoyed this video please like and subscribe. Now let's begin. Attacking a Baiju head-on was reckless. Uzumaki Naruto had done many such things in his life, even before his rebirth as it were. He'd challenged the odds time and time again, always coming out on top no matter what fate threw at him. But this, taking on a giant turtle with nothing more than his eyes and Susanoo to protect him, this went beyond reckless. Even further beyond. It was stupid, foolish and just damn arrogant, but with dozens of people and shinobi at his back, he didn't have a choice. In another life, what felt like nearly an age ago now, he'd once witnessed Madara laying waste to nearly all 9 Baiju with a blink of the eye. But limbo wasn't something he'd mastered just yet. Nor was it a technique was eager to use with a village of people at his back. His first instinct was to use his newfound wings to take flight, but he couldn't do that either, not without seriously risking the lives of his comrades. So, with that singular thought in mind, he dug Susanoo's feet in, spread his arms, and braced himself for the charging tortoise. Victory isn't always certain. Sometimes we trip. Sometimes we stumble. Sometimes we fall. Sometimes the best of us burn. In this case, it was a Baiju Dama, the sudden swirl of energy exploding into life a mere moment before Isabu collided with him. Behind the armored helm of Susanoo, Naruto blanched, crossing both arms before his face, a heartbeat too late. The detonation roared over him split second later. Oh, crap. Naruto didn't bother exclaiming his intentions, he simply flared the Ryugen and pushed with all his might. For a moment, just a moment, he met resistance, but it held weight. Where was the turtle? That was all he had time for before said creature burst out the soil. From behind Susanoo, poured on a burst of speed, tucked inward and rolled, driving him headlong into the burgeoned explosion. Yup. He'd forgotten it could do that. Its armored shell ground against Susanoo's chakra-enhanced bone like one giant grater, chipping pieces away until he was physically forced to drop the giant body for a moment, allowing the blast to all but shoot by harmlessly below. By the time he'd reconstituted it, the turtle was already there, tackling him into the forest. Tomb. Ground and soil, entire acres of trees pushed against the giant's feet as he shoved the enraged demon away. Okay, oh wow. I'd forgotten what it was like to actually be pushed in this body. He glanced down, just now noticing the blood on his hands, scraped bare in reflection of his own injury. A grim parody of a once pleasant smile stretched across his face as he focused his attention on the titan before him, pearly white teeth flashing on the mist. You know, for the first time, I think I'm actually starting to enjoy myself. Yup, sometimes we fall down. And sometimes we get back up, dust ourselves off, and keep moving. Meanwhile, in an undisclosed location, Fugaku, the one-eyed Uchiha, meekly raised his head in the darkness as his master called to him, trying and failing utmost to keep his scars hidden in the black. He knew he shouldn't be ashamed of the marks that had claimed most of his face, and the contrary, his master insisted that he should be proud. He was a true Uchiha, a survivor, the only one worthy to be mentored by his great ancestor. But how could he be proud when he was forced to live like this? Here in this underground lair, cut off from the world, how was he to fulfill his destiny? A subtle pulse of chakra reminded him that his master still required his attention. You called, master? Humbly he approached the wooden throne, debasing himself before him. A wet cough answered. The impostor is fighting the Sanbi even as we speak. You must make certain that he does not. Suddenly that withered figure cocked his head, considering. No. It's too late. He already has it. In that case, I am sending you to Iwa. I believe you know what do. After which, your destination is Konoha. You may do whatever you wish there, settle old grudges, I do not care. But you must bring me the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. You cannot fail me in this, Fugaku. My time is running short. Fugaku barely heard him. His mind had seized upon a single fact, locked on the knowledge that he was free to do as he pleased. I can burn it to the ground? The entire village? Yes, my boy. By contrasts, the man's smile was almost fatherly. You can burn it all. Fugaku nearly cackled with glee. Then I will have my revenge on that brat. Naruto. Yes. No. That took the crippled Uchiha back. No, Madara-sama? No. The shriveled Uchiha replied, resting his chin upon a bony hand. I will be the one to kill him. Ever since he'd merged with this black Zetsu creature he'd become infinitely stronger, true, but no matter how much he might wish otherwise his scars always remained. Not just on his body but in his mind, his psyche still savaged by the deadly flames that had nearly claimed his life. It was those eyes. Those awful, horrible eyes. They gazed upon him and found him wanting, consigning him to defame and defilement. His clan had been there, and they had abandoned him. Makoto had abandoned him. All because of him. That man. Traitor. Imposter. But now, it is time. Isabu was angry. It did not understand why it was losing, or how for that matter, only that it was. And that made it angrier still. Its mind was heat its opponent's mental cry that it had to stop, that it knew him, if only it would listen. Jumbled mess from years of genjutsu and pain and suffering, all jagged and sharp edges, in no mood to, but it was not listening. Its mind was broken and shackled by his master, branded with but a single order, a lone command that it couldn't defy even if it wanted to. Kill. And Naruto, for all his powers, was having a very difficult time bringing himself to do that. Oh, you so knew the gawk. Stop running around and hold still. Naruto choked in surprise as his blade met empty air, forcing him to spin and assume a ready stance once more. 3 water bullets followed, contemptuously cut down by the blazing azure blade in his grasp, but when he tried to strike out and cut down their own, Isabu proved to be deceptively fast. Watching it all, Makoto's sweat dropped. It's like they're playing a giant game of whack-a-mole, gah. She winced slightly, laying a hand against her deceptively flat stomach, hissing softly at it. Why you little stop that. Don't come out now. By the time she'd raised her gaze most of the Konoha shinobi and even a few Kari were giving her looks of varying disbelief. What? She gulped, a pang of almost comical dread overtaking her. It isn't anything. That was my quiet voice. You had no right to listen. Makoto, Tsukumo began slowly. How far along did you say you were again? A few weeks? She lied. Without the genjutsu. I have no idea what you're talking about. You haven't let anyone see you since we left the village. Shikako pointed out. The heiress was growing progressively redder by the moment, her face burning brightly beneath the dark halo of her hair. Ara, May blinked. Now that I look, it's obvious. You're not the best at genjutsu at the moment, are you? Not with a bone in the oven at any rate. I wonder if he's a one-woman kind of man. Makoto's flush had now reached uninvented, nuclear levels. Ao balked. Lady May? Are you serious? What? If he kills Yagura, I'd be more than happy to open relations with the leaf. Makoto wanted to die. She wanted a meteor to fall from heaven and strike her down now and send her to the afterlife, 'cause anything was better than having her dirty laundry aired here before complete strangers. May's not-so-simple comment certainly didn't help matters any, either. Ma, kill me now, God. Shikaku and Inoichi deadpanned. Nope. Look, it's not my fault if the little bugger wants to come early. I thought this would be an easy mission. Open and shut. One last hurrah before I pop out a kid and get regulated to diaper duty. Not that she had an offense to bearing a child or anything, she simply hadn't expected the mission to take this long, what with the traveling and concealing her pregnancy from prying eyes through subtle, then increasingly blatant misuse of genjutsu. A collective sigh rose from the men. Then you'd better pray your fiancé wins. Growling, Naruto advanced on the Sanbi again, readying himself just as the turtle threw itself into another dizzying spin. This time it seemed, he was ready for its unstoppable assault. A harsh shout echoed out from the giant. Amaterasu. For the first time since the brawl had begun, the beast shrieked in pain. Its charge fell short as the black flames erupted against its eye, tearing into its cornea like a rusty knife. The massive beast went careening past the lot of them with only a few feet to spare, showering them in dirt as it spun and tried to roll again, seeking its target. It never made it. Alright, here goes nothing. He sidestepped the assault and swung as quickly as he dared, bowling the giant turtle over with one swipe of his blade and sending it skidding back through a mountain, crushing the edifice under its massive bulk. However, it quickly righted itself and clambered back to its feet as it were, unharmed. Huh. Tough little bastard. That's it. In a Hirito unseen move, he banished the ethereal blade and spread his arms wide, Susanoo's wingspan flaring behind him. Sakamo balked. Is he? Mikoto grinned. I think so. Come at me bro. Shikaku's sweat dropped as Naruto's resonating shout snarled down at them. Yup. That sounds like him. Mei sighed. So manly. Oi, oi. Aisabu did just as the Uchiha demanded, cannoning into the giant with the force of a small typhoon. Naruto held his ground and the giant with him, giant hands closing around the massive abomination and grinding away. Slowing. Almost an unseen thing at first, barely perceptible, but there, sparks. Aisabu kept spinning but slowly, its momentum grinding to a painful halt, until it stopped altogether. Realizing its mistake, the three-tailed turtle began to try every trick its dulled mind knew to escape, desperately seeking the safety of the water. It writhed and thrashed, bucked and brayed, determined to be free, but Naruto refused to let go. A thundering snarl rose from Susanoo. Damn it, Aisabu. I know you're stronger than me, you damn thing, but I cannot, will not, lose. With a final, monumental howl, he gripped the creature's soft underbelly and heaved with all his might, hurling it away. It was a very good throw, everyone thought. Freed from the earth, the Baiju went sailing up, 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 and then down, down, down. A giant hand placed itself in front of the town as the shrieking monstrosity crashed down into the water, the massive limb, blocking it from the ensuing tidal wave. All around them the land splintered and tore, but the little fishing village remained, thanks to the impenetrable blue bulwark thrust before them. When at last the smoke and thunder had died, the giant simply picked itself back up and lumbered towards its prey. Aisabu offered a mequine from where it lay on its back, lacking the means or the will to right itself. Well, that was anticlimactic. Naruto staggered upright, balanced the giant's weight on his right foot, and cut down. I'll take it from here. To his surprise, the creature flowed right up his blade, physically drained away as though it had never existed. It flowed right up the arm and, to the Uchiha's disbelief, into him. His stomach. He felt his chakra coils strain just a bit, twitching, as they swelled to accommodate their new tenant. Yagura's body was left behind, emptied of its Baiju, still and dead as the shattered landscape behind it. Naruto felt a passing twinge of regret for the life he'd unintentionally taken, then came the confusion. This didn't make any sense. None. Okay, what? He supposed he still had a ghost of the Reaper death seal placed upon him, but he hadn't been trying to draw anything into it. More than that, it was empty. He'd run out of the last vestiges of Kurama's chakra a long time ago, nearly a month now. He hadn't been the one to pull the Sanbi inside of him. Someone else had. Well, that narrowed the culprits to two. Don't look at me, partner. Yami Naruto cried as Naruto turned his attention on him. Blame the bitch. The who? My thanks for the meal. Sure enough, a woman's voice purred back at him, leaving him with the distinct sensation of someone smacking their lips after a well-finished meal. That was delicious. Well done. That. Only 8, no. 7 I suppose, given how much of the fox's chakra I took. More to go. I suppose returning in a diminished capacity is better than none at all. Keep up the good work. There was a silence as Naruto's brain processed. What the hell did you do? Oh, many things. She replied flippantly, and in a sudden moment of clarity he saw white hair in his mind's eye. I modified your seal, cleared away a bit of clutter, used it to take in the essence of the Sanbi and make it my own. Now, I need not fear wasting away while you work. It has made you several times more powerful as well. You may thank me, if you wish. Naruto felt his eye twitch. He wasn't feeling very thankful at the moment. Within good reason. Alright, enough's enough. Who are you? I'm terribly sorry dear, but I'm afraid I don't feel like telling you that just yet. You might react poorly. Just like that, the pressure abated, leaving him to wonder at its source. Oh, don't pout. I suppose I'll leave you with a hint. I am a ghost, someone who once was, and still may yet be once again. Great. Now, his deadpan was barely concealed. So I have a ghost of some dead lady in my head. Comforting. And are you so different? White eyes stared back at him from the abyss, a pair of full lips quirking in a smile, oddly familiar. You, who have come back from death itself and become more than what you ever were, an Uchiha now in body and blood, yes, but still an Uzumaki at and in the soul. Do you not realize how close you are to me? 7 steps will make you a god. The world will be yours to do with as you see fit. If you do not want war, then, there will be no war. None of this meaningless trivial illusions that Madara wanted. Peace. Genuine, actual, peace. And if I don't want to be a god? He replied. He knew firsthand the kind of corruption power like that could bring. She huffed, put out by his reluctance. You have no say in the matter. It is to be. You're awfully pushy. Anybody ever telling you that? Yes. But worry not. Suffice it to say we share a common goal. I only desire to see you succeed in that very goal, which is mine as well. And who knows, you just might find yourself in the favor of a goddess, by the end. Goodbye for now, mate of mine. We shall speak again. It was impossible to tell, but in that instant, he could have sworn he felt lips brush his ear. Then she was gone, her presence slipping through his hands even as he tried to pin her down. He was really beginning to wonder who she was. But there were other matters to attend to. Banishing Susanoo, he dropped down into the water, effortlessly alighting upon its surface. Yagura stared back at him, laying adrift in the deep. Once more, Naruto felt his heart lurch. He'd only met Yagura briefly, but it still hurt knowing he'd essentially killed a fellow Jinchuriki. Just a reminder that Uzumaki Naruto still existed inside him, not the Uchiha everyone thought he was. What he was about to do made that heart turn to ice and shatter, but he knew it had to be done. Long time no see, he said, dropping his haunches. No offense, but you look like shit. Why? Sorry. Naruto felt just a prickling of pity as he reached down for the dying Mizukage. I didn't mean to kill you. It just happened. I know you think I'm heartless, but this is the only way to figure out who did this to you. To find out who keeps pulling the strings. Rest in peace, old friend. Before the half-dead Yagura had a chance to wonder what he meant by that, the Uchiha placed a hand to his head and pulled. Rinnegan flaring, he reached down deeper than most men dared, found the flickering essence that was once Yagura's soul, and pulled. Yes, his mind was quite forthcoming. What? There must have been a mental block of some sort in his mind, because he instantly found his attention sucked inwards into a place that was neither here nor there. In a dark cave, in the black of night, he stared at his age-old enemy. I knew it was you, Naruto. The old man's voice was like an amplified whisper. If a knife could talk, this would be what it sounded like. He pointed one long, bony finger at him, chuckling dry. I had my suspicions, but this irony truly does hate the two of us, doesn't it? I cast back into this withered shell and you, wielding all my strength, all my powers. He wasn't surprised. Not really. It stood to reason that Madara, of all people, would find some way to claw his way back from the Reaper's stomach. Assuming that was the case. Care to tell me how you're here? Death is a two-way street for beings like us, boy. Came the mysterious reply. He paused, considering. Then he nodded. You make a fine Uchiha. I can see the death in your eyes. It stains your very soul. Tell me, how many have you killed using my gifts? Does it make you feel proud? The blonde bristled at the accusation, revulsion warring with spite. I am not an Uchiha. These abilities are a means to an end. Nothing more. The withered warrior leaned back with a creak of bone. Perhaps not yet, but you will be, in time. It makes you dangerous. That's why you have to die. Save me the speech. A glove hand shot up, waving through the watery image. What do you want? Want? That actually got a blink from the one-eyed conjure. I want what I've always wanted. A world where there are no losers, where there is no war. Please tell me you're not going to start the Moon's Eye plan again. When the latter refused to answer, Naruto nearly laughed. Oh my God. You're pathetic. You're still living in a fantasy world, ignoring reality, says the fool parading around as an Uchiha. Came the thundering reply. I didn't ask for it. That's the difference. Yet you don't hesitate to make use of it. Madara sneered. Admit it, Naruto. You enjoy it. He shambled down off the wooden throne with a dark chuckle and hobbled towards him, looking him square in the eye. The power, the prestige, the entire village down on bended knee, licking your boots, it's what you always wanted. Everyone has an eye out for you now, everyone either wants you to be their shining knight, or their darkest fear. And you love it. All this attention, the adulation you never had lies. Naruto didn't let it show, didn't reveal just how closely those words had struck to home. Exhaling, he spun away, pushing past the block and probing deeper into Yagura's subconscious. I don't need to justify myself to you. Heavens no, of course you don't. I don't care if she has chosen you, Uzumaki, you will fail, and I will succeed. This time, there will be no death god to save you. Ignoring the inane urge to ask just who she was, the former blonde glared bloody red daggers at the ancestral Uchiha, refusing to back down. I could say the same, this time you won't succeed. You poor fool. You don't even know, do you? You'll die last for that, imposter. And with that, the vision was gone. Naruto jerked back to himself, scowling. Yagura knew nothing. Less than nothing. Even pulling out his soul seemed to have distanced him even further from his goal. Yes, he knew that Madara was back, and yes, he knew that the man was still gunning for him, and yes, he was being a gigantic prick about it, but that did nothing to tell him where he was, what he was doing, or what he was up to. Knowing the final outcome was only good as long as you knew how to stop it at all. Fucking Madara, why can't you just stay dead? Madara? Naruto spun around so fast he was almost certain he'd given himself whiplash. Tsukumo Hitake stared back at him, his expression questioning. How much of that had he heard? None of it was particularly damning, but it could still bring up all sorts of unwanted questions, and he didn't want to go around poking that particular hornet's nest just yet. You might want to get back to the village. The whitehead jerked a thumb over his shoulder. Makoto's going into labor. Wait, what? Faster than a speeding kunai and ignoring the snickers of his two occupants, Naruto bolted back towards the village. A small tent had been erected on the outskirts in his absence, near which he could see a number of Kiri shinobi gathered. He sped inside, somewhat alarmed to find Makoto within, Shikaku and Inoichi, as well as a very baffled Yoruichi, the young girl standing guard over her prone, gasping form. And, May? Oh. The green-eyed vixen blinked. The conquering hero returns. Just in time, Naruto brushed past her, hurrying to the Blacket's side. Yoruichi cocked her head aside. Daddy? Oh, that was a can of worms he did not want to open right now. What in blazes is going on? The heiress stuck out her tongue, grimacing. Yeah, remember that bit about being pregnant? Distantly, he felt the beginnings of a frown pulling at his lips. Yes. I might have used henge and a bit of genjutsu to make it seem like I wasn't that along. And she grimaced as another contraction hit. Do I need to spell it out for you? Somewhere in the back of his brain, wires crossed. Oh fuck all kinds of duck language. Sorry, dear. And as for you, she poked Naruto in the chest, reaching up to grab him by the collar of his flak jacket. You put this thing inside of me, you are going to be here when I deliver it. Several agonizing hours later, Tsukumo had never seen Naruto so flustered before in all his life. Well, never heard really, seeing as Naruto had yet to leave the tent. Makoto's cries and his yelps of pain, however, rang quite clearly through the gathered ensemble of guards and allies. Truth be told, it was the first time he'd heard the annoyingly little bugger be anything other than smug. Truth be told, he rather enjoyed it. Immensely. Hate you so much right now. Sangomaru, clan head of the Kaguya, arched a bright eye, his white brow nearly brushing the twin red dots in his forehead. That is the wife of the Black Death, is it not? She certainly seems to have a loud voice. If nothing else, tell Bonehead to shut it or I will fucking end him. Impossibly the man wasn't offended by the heiress's angry shout. If anything, he seemed excited by her vitriol. I like her. She has spurt. I pray her husband is as strong as the rumors claim. Hatake managed to feign a look of summary nervousness at that. Yes, well, you'll see soon enough. Now, as you were saying, Kaguya Dono? Ah, yes, I was saying something, wasn't I? We would be honored to fight beside someone so mighty as the Black Death. His head bobbed sagely, the white curtain of his tresses jerking sharply from the motion. I have only one desire beforehand, to witness his strength for myself. Oh, that'll be no problem. He led the eager man, more of a battle freak, really, aside from the speculative Kiri Shinobi. Here, why don't we formalize it in writing? Bah, I always hated paperwork. Negotiations with the Kaguya were well underway, the clan having been drawn by the conflict against the Sanbi to what the leader was even now calling a battle for the ages, but alas, Naruto was not there to conduct or formalize the treaty. No, he was busy tending to other matters. Push. I'm pushing, you insufferable bastard. I blame you for this. You put this thing in me. Come on, Makoto-chan, don't be like that. Ow wow wow. That's my hand. Oh, I'm so sorry, that hurts. I'm fine. Came the strangled cry. I'm not going anywhere, alright? An equally pained whimper followed as a head of black hair peered out of the tent. Don't. Squeeze. I'd rather not have an arm in a cast. Push. With a final, agonizing scream Makoto did. Mei cried out seconds later. It's a boy. Tsukumo gulped at the silence that followed. He could only imagine what was taking place in the tent right now. A dad. I'm a dad. Well, this feels weird. Don't faint, dear. Makoto crooned. I'm trying. Naruto stared down at the tiny pink face, gawping slightly. His child stared back up at him with wide, dark eyes. The Uchiha valiantly fought off stares, but to no avail. They poured from him like a leaky dam as he bid hello to the small life he'd unwittingly helped bring back into this world. He gazed down at the small face, that little body swaddled in white cloth. His heart lurched. The kid had been born early, very early in fact, yet he looked perfectly healthy. Makoto beamed, her sweaty face looking like sunshine to his eyes. Welcome to the world, she cooed, nestling the small bundle in her arms. Even if you decided to come a little early. Naruto flicked a thought at one of his clones, setting the doppelganger to tending her delicate, exhausted body. Inoichi and Shikaku had fainted dead away, evidently unaccustomed to witnessing the birth of a child, and Naruto silently resolved to remind them of their lack of fortitude at every turn. Wait. The baby. Why wasn't he crying? Mei leaned over him. Just a moment. He has just a little fluid in his lungs. Ah, there Ouija wa. Naruto jumped, startled by the vehemence of the boy's cry. Whoa. He's a loud one, Makoto murmured, just like his father. Wow. Yoruichi peeked over the bed, her golden eyes shining. He's so tiny. Does that make me a big sister? Makoto shot Naruto a dangerous look that said, you will be explaining this later, before returning her attention to the caramel-skinned girl. Well, since it seems my husband does have a habit of picking up strays and little sisters during his travels, so I suppose it does. You wound me. Naruto found himself sputtering. It's not my fault, I have a soft spot for kids. A very soft spot, came the pouting reply. Libel. Have you thought of a name? Mei asked, restraining a smile. Just like that, Makoto perked up, the baby's cries having quieted while she rocked him gently to and fro. As a matter of fact, yes. Naruto felt his ears prick, standing at attention. Oh? You never mentioned that before. What'll it be, then? Please tell me we're not naming him Sasuke. That got him a strange look. Actually, I was thinking, Itachi. Itachi. Huh. I like that name. You'd better. She huffed. It's your turn to hold him. What? No. I'll drop him. There's no way I. His protests died away as Makoto offered him his son. Pulling the small infant into his arms, he dared to smile, his first true smile, since coming to this time period. The infant in his arms burbled happily. It seemed impossible, but he thought he saw a gleam of recognition in those small, dark eyes. And just like that, he was lost. Ship sunk, floundering on the shore. Any fears he might have had at being a father, all but withered away, replaced by, honestly, he wasn't sure what. It didn't seem possible to love someone at first sight, but this boy, his son, God's, my son. Hey, Itachi. It was, he decided, the greatest moment of his life, and it would also be one of the last. All around them, Konoha burned, a candle in the night. Naruto spun away from the masked man, biting back a low growl as yet another bruise formed on his arm. Fast. Solid, too. Even blows from the incomplete Susanoo seemed to bounce off of him, almost as if he were physically dense somehow in this reality. Grabbing him was near impossible. It was the complete antithesis of Obito's power. And that worried him. He'd worked so hard to make certain that Obito never became the masked man, but it seemed fate had other designs for him if this stranger was any indication. He didn't understand it at all. They'd come back to find the village in flames, but instead of an army attacking, it was just one man who, apparently, commanded the Yonbi. They'd come home to find the beast rampaging within their very wells, and though it had been easily beaten back thanks in part to the Sanbi water and lava not mixing well and whatnot, the true threat still remained an irritant, and he was tearing through their forces, through him, as though they were rank Junin. That was troubling. Who the hell are you? Naruto growled, ducking an unwieldy thrown tree branch. What do you want? Don't remember us, do you? The masked stranger merely laughed, his lone eye twinkling out from a hole the black mask, opposite the one Obito should have worn. How you humiliated us. Demeaned us? Shamed us. Well, now we plan to do the same to you. That's right. A scarred hand thrust forward, pointing at him imperiously. We know who you are, boy. We know. And we will have you pay for what you did to us. Ice ran up Naruto's spine to the base of his skull. That voice. You're insane. He countered. They circled one another, two predators, waiting for the right moment to strike. And you're an imposter. The masked man said. A fake. Fraud. How does it feel, Black Death? To know that, after coming so far, you are about to lose everything you once held dear? Naruto reached behind his back, his hand already forming the seals that would punch a hole through the madman. I won't lose anything if I kill you. But can you, I wonder? Before he could blast him to pieces, the man pulled something out of his voluminous robe. Scarlet hair flashed in the moonlight. A chain rattled. No. Not something, he realized. Someone. Naruto frowns. A soft voice reached his ears. Her voice. Naruto, run. In that instant, running was the last thing on his mind. Kushina. Put her down. Oh, no, no, no. The madman tittered softly, his arm. The woman snarled virulently and kicked at him, only to yelp in pain as he backhanded her, cackling madly. Ah, feisty. The things we could do to you, but first, you're Baijuga. Gina Finger, you're not the one giving us orders. Not anymore. Growling, the masked Uchiha jerked his victim back on the chain, drawing her closer to him, shackled as she was to her head snapped backwards, producing a thin crack in his mask. Naruto arched an eyebrow. A vulnerability. He could be caught off guard. So foolish, he crooned, stroking her face. So full of fire. We will enjoy breaking you. Go fuck yourself, traitor. She snapped back. Traitor? That lone eye blinked, indignant. You're wrong, my dear. He. Another jab at Naruto. He is the traitor. Bullshit. She is important, to you, no? He sneered, roving eye sweeping back to Naruto. Yes, we can see it in your face. Perhaps we should make you feel what we felt when we lost everything that day? Yes. A knife appeared in his hand, its naked edge pressing gently against the pale flesh of her jugular. She went still. Maybe you should lose her? Then you will know pain. Then, perhaps, you will understand. Naruto jerked half a step forward, a muscle jumping in his jaw. If you touch her, I'll tear you apart. If he could just cut the chain. We do not fear death. The masked man answered quickly, moving so that his victim was between him and the reborn Uchiha. But you wouldn't hurt her. We know this. You're soft. Weak. But if you do not care if she dies, we will remove her. Quickly. He began to move the knife Fugaku. The name tore from his throat in a snarl, evoking the man's name. Do it. See what happens. Do not call us that. The masked man shrank back, pulling his hostage with him. That is not our name anymore. We are pain. We are more. We are greater. We are better than you. If you believe that, drop her and face me like a man. Never. Venom colored the man's tone. We will not be fooled by your tricks. Not this time. There was a silence. We are, all of us, the sum of our parts. Naruto said at last, his shoulders slumping. Only a coward hides behind a hostage. Fugaku jerked the knife, eliciting a gasp from his victim. Naruto flinched, lowering his head to glower at his feet. The kunai clattered out of his grasp with a resounding clang. All right, when he raised his gaze, there was resignation in his stare. Put her down. I'll do what you want. The crazed Uchiha grinned behind the mask, his grip slackening, just a bit. Yes, we knew you would see it our way. Sorry. You lie. His head jerked down, boring into Kushina's furious gaze, forcing her to look at him. Come, Kyuubi. Kushina spasmed. No. Ha. Now you will know he never got to finish that sentence, because the world imploded. Rinbo Hengoku. The next thing Fugaku knew, he was flying back, his head now adorned by something better described as a dent than a face. The next thing he knew, he was knocked upwards. A blinking blue light was growing larger at the end of his vision. The next, he was knocked back down. And the next thing Fugaku, traitor to Konoha, knew, for quite some time after that, was pain. When he finally recovered, when he finally realized where he'd been flung, when his broken mind finally scrabbled together enough sense to see what was happening, he found himself staring into the unholy eyes of the Rinnegan. He'd been flung clear out of the village, he realized, his body impaled upon a series of pointed tree roots far beyond the outskirts of the savaged Konoha. Then, to his dismay, those roots bent, trapping him to the ground, dinging him. Makoton? When had he, talk about tyranny? Naruto alighted only a few feet away, looking like death. There was nothing in those eyes. Like death they swept over him, finding him wanting. You, his voice was like ice, jagged and cruel, cutting him to ribbons with words alone. You die slowly. What are you doing? Through his blurry eye he could see the impostor biting his thumb, making hand signs, even as he dragged himself off the roots, staggering upright. He was preparing something, some massive jutsu that drained his reserves by half. But to what purpose? He had to know his body was immune to such. You've done it now. He rumbled. I never wanted to bring this out, I never wanted people to see this side of me. Wham! A boot shot out, catapulting him into the forest. It's like I live in a world of cardboard. Always taking constant are not to breaking something here in the past. To break someone. I will break you. Snarling, Fugaku surged upright. Naruto blurred, and he found himself down again, the earth cratering beneath his back. Shattered spine. Broken pelvis. The wounds healed almost instantaneously, but even then, there was no respite to be found in the onslaught. Tomb. The earth cried out as the reborn Uchiha's fist summoned Susanoo and obliterated half the forest in a single swing, sending the severed halves of Fugaku, Tabi sprawling. Naruto stomped after him without so much as a care in the world, a lone Raisen shuriken circling in his hand. With flick of his fingers, he let it fly, lobbing it at the already reforming hybrid. Shing! Fugaku shrieked as he found himself torn into 1,000 pieces and forcibly reconstituted, broken, reform, and broken again. Chains of chakra shot up from the earth, tethering him in place, shackling him against what new horrors the blonde had prepared for him. "But you can take it, can't you, big man?" His voice was a sneer, crackling like a whip. "What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to vent, to cut loose and show you exactly what I can do. The atrocities I can commit. The beings I can summon. Like this." Kuchios no Jutsu. A great, towering shape rose up out of the ensuing plume of smoke, its great black bulk rearing back. Streaks of jagged blue adjourned his massive bulk, seeming to writhe and shift as he looked on. Slavering jaws gave way, parting to expose massive teeth as large as he was tall. A throaty rumble gusted from its throat, blasting away the smoke with a single snort. What was this creature? Oni? Devil? Demon? Akuma? He tried to find some word to classify the phantom being of death hovering over him, its wings blotting out the very stars themselves, and found nothing. Eerie golden eyes regarded him, and found him wanting. "Hello, little man." Naruto raised a finger and uttered 2 words. Acknowledgia. Destroy. In the hell that followed those 2 words, Fugaku realized something. He knew pain. But this dragon was pain, tossing him about like a ragdoll, teeth piercing him, breath puncturing his formerly impenetrable hide as if it were made of wet driftwood. He was torn and mangled and torn again, ripped apart by the Lord of all dragons until, what felt like an eternity later, the creature was finally satisfied. Then, and only then, did he experience death. A trembling hand closed around his face, lifting him up, shattering the mask like glass. Something was pulling at him now. No, wait, he was looking at his body from the outside, which meant, what did that mean anyway? "Are you satisfied now, bastard?" Distantly he heard the imposter's voice, broken and angry. "You sick, fuck mothering piece of shit. Are you happy? She's dead. You killed her." Fugaku chuckled wearily, savoring the look of anguish in his opponent's eyes. Good. Now it was done. Now he would know. Now he would experience the soul-wrenching agony of losing someone to fate. Then, pain. An unholy roar answered him. "Your soul is mine." What felt like an eternity later, the village finally some semblance of order. The morning sun peeked its head out amidst the carnage, peering down into a village that was beaten, but not broken. One man felt as if he were. Uchiha Naruto stood in the wreckage, fingers holding Kushina's wrist, straining in vain to catch her fluttering pulse, the screams and wailing drifting up to him from the street, the pops of sparking wires from the telephone poles. He heard it all, tried to breathe, and yet, he couldn't. It was the sound of what happened when you thought you knew better than the people who wrote the rule books. It was the sound of consequences, and someone had paid the price. Unbidden, the words came back to him. "You could be a god. I don't want to be a god," he growled, forming the signs, "I want her back." Hands outstretched towards her, fingers clenched. Rin Tensei no before he could even finish channeling the chakra, before the jutsu could even be enacted, she stirred. Naruto froze. No. That was impossible. He put Guramu back, but the strain had killed her. She'd been dead. So, it had to be impossible. There was just no feasible way that she should be here without a sacrifice of some sort on his part, without. "You're welcome." The woman's voice fluttered in his ear, a butterfly, taking flight. "I just spared you losing half your lifespan." Bright eyes fluttered open. "Hey," Kushina groaned in his arms, "what did I miss, Bane?" Naruto coughed quietly, fighting back a sob. "Oh, nothing, Bayo. I love it when you say that. Just don't talk for a minute." He rushed down and embraced her, fearing she might evaporate if he let go. Kushina cried. "What happened? What did I miss? Did I die? What the MMPH?" She badgered him with questions, but he didn't have the strength to try and answer any of them. He simply kissed her, and she melted against him like lava, brushing his tears away. She was back. She was alive. And that was all that mattered. They stayed like that for a very long time. Kill. Murder. Destroy. Defenestrate. Naruto, Makoto sighed patiently as she nursed a hungry Itachi at her breast. That last one wasn't a word, you know. It took everything she had and more to restrain a grim smile as Naruto bustled past her, muttering crossly aloud as if he had only one focus in the world, wreaking havoc on those who had struck at the village. His reply certainly lent credit to that. Then I'll make it one. Wait. Can he do that? May asked, looking up from the paperwork she was filing, green eyes flecked with concern. Initially she'd been more than a little wary of staying with this disorganized band of rogues until proper housing arrangements were contrived. But thus far, she had to admit, it didn't lack for entertainment. With all the influence he has now? Pakura scoffed. They'd name the bloody village after him if he asked. I'm sure they wouldn't. Karura didn't even deign to look up from her meal. Odd. She'd had the strangest cravings lately. Right, Hashi frowned. Speaking of asking. Slowly and painfully, her pale, benevolent gaze swiveled to him and Makoto, brimming with an oh-so-subtle aura of menace in place of her normally staid confidence. It seems someone got a herd start when we weren't looking. Danger. Danger. Yeah, dear alert. Ah, such was the price of caring for so many people, he'd learned relationship kindly. Even if that challenge was something as unexpected as having a son. Great many things about the beauties who surrounded him. Key amongst them, some did not take challenges to this strange little I hope so. Kushina's smile remained fixed, won't be held responsible for what happens. Place from where she lounged on the couch, quietly combing the twitchy Yoruichi's hair, but the eerie aura of doom didn't abate, still leaking from her like a cracked sieve. Otherwise, we're not helping. Naruto swore and resumed his furious pace back and forth in the den room, hands clenched behind his back, trying not to unleash Susanoo and level the entire village. Distantly, he felt the warm hearth of the fire against his back, a balm to the otherwise immutable chills racing up and down his spine. He wasn't ill, mind you, far from it, he'd never been more hale and healthy. The medics told him his wounds had healed at a ridiculous rate, no surprise there, and he would be back in fighting shape in no time at all. Try telling that to the terror gripping him, however, and it would have laughed. A cold, frigid rope of dread had tied itself into painful knots in his gut ever since he'd slain Fugaku last night. Now, you know pain. Those words rang in his mind, even now. Because it wasn't over. It wasn't. It was only beginning. Madara was lashing out at him now, actively seeking to interfere in what he was doing. No sleep. No rest, he hadn't even eaten. Every waking moment had been spent making sure others were all ready, clearing away the debris with his powers, hoisting this beam, helping Milwaukee begin the reconstruction. Reassuring civilians and townsfolk alike that no, they weren't being invaded, no, Iwa hadn't struck at them, it was relentless. An endless series of shapes and blurs and sounds that had long since ceased to have any proper purpose. That wasn't even the crux of the matter. In a matter of hours his stellar reputation in the village had gone from legendary to outright worship, and that bothered him immensely. For the life of him, he couldn't figure out what to do about it. Oh, he may have saved the village, may have driven off and subsequently slain the one responsible, but he still felt the guilt for the destruction that had been caused most keenly. He had brought with him a horde of refugees and new shinobi that not only required food and shelter in the now damaged village, but needed to be integrated as well. Naruto. In short, chaos. The dawn had come now, and with it, a demand for answers. Naruto. Fugaku may not have been able to reveal his secret, but in the chaos before his return, the madman had leveled entire blocks of the village. The Yanbi had been devoured, much like the Sanbi, by that strange presence within him, but that did nothing to answer the questions. Where was it? Why had it struck? What were they going to do about it? Summoning a dragon atop only added more questions. Naruto. Despite this recent influx of goodwill, every fiber of his being shrieked for him to take his loved ones and get the hell out of Dodge. But to do that was madness. He couldn't just uproot so many lives on a whim. Where would they even go? Suna? Not a good idea for raising a newborn. Iwa wanted his head on a stick, so nope, that wasn't happening. Kumo was out of the question, and trekking all the way back to war-torn Kiri wasn't exactly wise, either. So, no, not a lot of options in that regard, which meant grap Naranton. What? Spinning about, he fixed Makoto with a glower. She returned it in spades, not moving from her chair. Is Kushina alive? It was not an inquiry, but a statement. OSU. The redhead saluted merrily from across the room. And kicking. The rage in his eyes clouded. Ye are the others alive? She pressed, standing, crossing the room to him. Yes, and if you'd would just bloody let me, am I alive? She stepped to him. Yes. Is your son alive? His eyes flitted down to the mewling babe in her arms. Her child. His son. Theirs. Tenderly, he reached down to poke the tiny cheek of his son. Never get used to that. And smiled softly. Yoruichi thrust her head up at his elbow, eager to get another glimpse at her little brother. Giggling, she held out a finger, cooing softly as the infant's puny fist closed around it. Kushina and the others took that opportunity to crowd in as well. Always delighted to see baby Itachi's face. Wow. We really are one big, crazy family. Seeing their smiling faces, Naruto felt the last brick in the wall of his resistance crumble. Yes. Then relax, darling. Humming softly, the Uchiha heiress nuzzled her cheek against his own, kissing him softly. We won. She said, drawing away. There will be other battles, other foes to face. Other children, too. Color leached out of his face as though someone had dumped bleach on his head. Yoruichi laughed, delighted. Really? Lord Naruto. Before he could reply to that particular landmine, an Anbu thrust their head through a window, their bat-like masks startling everyone present. Hokage-sama requests your and Lady Mizukage's presence in his quarters at once. Right away. The Uchiha all but bolted, thankful to escape that catastrophe. So, he's nettled? Konan inquired, glancing after his fading form. Super nettled. Yahiko grinned. Yoruichi blinked. But, Fugaku's dead. Why would he be? Yes, and the one behind him will just find another pawn. Kushina shook her head, watching his retreating back as Mei hastened after him. He can't abide by that. Naruto looked like he was about to bolt the moment the Anbu dragged him into the office. Oi, what's this about? Sarutobi didn't blame him, he'd called him here to deliver a mission report, but for Orochimaru to be here, well, it killed two birds with one stone. He had a mission to give him, and at the same time, he could gauge his reaction to the news he'd just given the Uchiha. His reaction would be crucial in determining his position down the road. So, he came right out and said it, awaiting his reaction. You want me to be Hokage? By contrasts, Orochimaru looked stricken. When the war is over, of course, Hiruzen stifled a cough behind his hand. You've done much for this village and its people. The recent attack notwithstanding, their trust in you runs deeper than ever. And I understand that congratulations are in order. How is little Itachi? The man sputtered, coloring. Well, sir. I trust his grandfather looks forward to seeing his new heir? Naruto colored. Right. Talking with the clan heads. There was a discussion he was looking forward to. So there we are, unless you have another recommendation. Yeah, no. I refuse. The sudden and abrupt denial nearly gave Hiruzen a heart attack. What? This is unexpected. Naruto glanced to the shinobi at his side. Looking back, the decision was obvious. The Orochimaru of his day would have been a terrible Hokage. But the one standing beside him was different. He'd stepped off the path of power and taken more than a few steps toward the light. The man standing beside him was one he'd gladly call friend, he'd share a drink with him any day. And with that, he knew what needed to be done. I nominate Orochimaru in my place. What? The pale man practically exploded, such was his surprise. Naruto-kun, what are you? Zip it. Let me talk. Naruto didn't need to look to feel those golden eyes burning into his back, assessing him as he stepped forward, laying hands on the old man's desk. Regardless, he made his case. Look, I really appreciate the honor, but let's face it. I don't deserve it. I haven't even been here a full 2 years yet and I really suck at paperwork. I belong in the field. Not behind a desk. I don't have the trust of the people anywhere else. But Orochi here, he nudged the pale Sannin beside him, He has all the experience I lack. He's been a Konoha shinobi for years, the people know him. Trust him. More importantly, they're not terrified out of their wits by him. And you're certain of this? Sarutobi frowned. Yup. They would love him as he is now. Now, why need you to go to Iwa? Alright, sounds doable. Just me get a team to alone. Dark eyes narrowed. Wanna tell me why? You're going to assassinate the Tsuchikage. For the first time since they'd met, Naruto visibly recoiled in shock. I beg your pardon? I believe I should take my leave, Orochimaru said suddenly, speaking abruptly. I'll see you later, Naruto-kun. Mei-san. Ah, right. Wait. Naruto felt a cold weight of lead drop into his gut as he was left alone with Mei and Sarutobi. You mean to tell me Iwa had a hand this? We're not entirely certain, but the signs point to it. Fugka obviously had help. And that the Yanbi was present also points to their involvement. Since its attack, we've caught several spies trying to leave the village. At best they're simply gathering intel, at worst, an invasion is imminent. In our weakened state our enemies could easily take advantage. Great. Because that's all we need right now. But killing a cage? Baiju or not, isn't that a little, I dunno, his hand gestured wildly, overboard? Speaking of the Four Tails, a thick pause fell over the room, thick and cloying as Hiruzen steered the subject back on track. You never mention it in your reports. How did you drive it off? Naruto looked away, almost as though he were ashamed. In the end he decided not to pursue it. If the young man was capable of taking down Baiju on an almost daily basis, then who was he to question how it was done? I'd understand if you refused, given what happened. He provided, when the silence continued to pervade the room. But you agree, it happens now. Mei nearly shouted him down at that, only narrowly restraining herself. Lord Hokage, you can't just. Naruto exhaled mightily. Fuck it. Grumbling, he spun and strode away, darting out the window. Mei balked, hurrying after him. Wait, where are you? Oh, the usual. Just going to kill an ancient, evil Uchiha. Wipe out a village. That sort of thing. I'll be home for dinner. Biting his thumb he slapped his hand down on empty air. All the stops. Every last one. He was determined to do this before his better judgment got him in another bind, before Madara could strike again. With that in mind, he reached deep, and summoned a force that made the world quiver. A deafening roar greeted his summons, his feet alighting on a great, broad back. Come, Alduin. Just like that, he went to war, and everything fell apart. Alive. Pain equals fire equals death. Regeneration? No? Sleeping pulled yanked awoke in death? Dream? Words. Noise. Sound. Sleep. Everything's jumbled, like thick, angry knots. Can't think. No focus. I'm tired. Sleep. Need sleep. Floating. Voices. And then, pain. I can think now. A little. Tiny thoughts, small thoughts, not unlike those of a child. There's more of me now, for lack of a better term. Or is it I? Whatever I am. I don't know. Or if I do, don't remember. It's warm here, wherever here is safe. Like a cradle. I feel my eyes open, only to close again. Chakra flows through me, warmed by the distant exhalation of breath. It burns through me, and for a single moment of blessed clarity, I hear a valse, Gokumekyaku. Sleepy, now. Rest. My mind is clearer, now. Distant sensations come to me, muted, faint, but still there. I feel the sand against my skin. Hear voices. See things. Like a waking dream, one that I might stir from at any given moment. I have no voice, no form, nothing beyond my own thoughts. I have learned how to speak, yet I cannot find words. Strange. My soul is like a jigsaw puzzle, slowly being pieced together, one part at a time. I know not what or who I am, only that I exist, a parasite in this body. I draw strength from him, and he draws that strength from me, the feedback empowering us both. I owe him much. Somehow, my mind knows that I am bound to him. We are intrinsically tied together, He and I, without him I would die, and, had he not my strength, he too would perish once more. Perhaps, someday, I can tell him of this. Perhaps, someday, I can tell him thank you. But for now, my eyes see what he sees, and so I watch, and I learn. I watch him and I wonder. Why does he fight? What compels him to go to such lengths as these, to prolong his own agony? If this is life, then life is a cruel, bitter thing. Better to dream, than live in such a wretched world. In dreams one cannot be harmed. You cannot suffer. You cannot die. In a dream, reality is yours to shape as you see fit, but in the waking world, we are all slaves to reality. I sense that my host no, I will not call him that any longer. I sense that Naruto knows this as well as I, he has even conveyed as much to those who ask. And yet still he smiles. Still, he seeks to change the future. Why? Why? Would not it be better to dream? Why fight? Why flail? Why struggle so, when the world itself stands against you? What does it take? And yet, he perseveres. I see him take comfort in those he cares for. Perhaps it is they who give him the strength to continue? Perhaps it is I, who am wrong. I remember my name now, but I am afraid to speak it. Names have power, and I fear that if I dare speak mine aloud, I will remember. I do not want to remember. In truth, I want these idyllic days to continue forever. I, who once deemed this man a savage fool, have come to see the error of my ways. Strange as it might sound, I can see the merit in his actions. He fights not just for himself, but for those he loves. Past, present, and future. In a single being, no less. My thoughts turn now to myself, wondering how I came to be trapped inside him. What am I? My memory still eludes me. I want to talk to him. I want to understand. I need to understand him. He is of light and dark. A lover and warrior both. Gentle to those he cares for, and a terror to those who would harm them. He cares not for the curses he receives, nor the blame when he makes a mistake. He simply does what must be done, and strives ever onward. Not an evil man, but a necessary one. He is the hero that this world deserves, just not the one that it needs right now. Many will curse him, damn him for what he does, but still, he presses on. Still, if not him, what does this world need, then? Family. Is this what it means? I did not think it possible for one man to love so many women and yet, at the same time, care for them in equal measure. There are no favorites, no singling out of those who are weaker, stronger, or the like. He devotes himself to each of them in equal measure, and they love him for it. Just as he cares for those 3 children in his own way, he holds nothing back beyond his secret. This, I can understand. Were we to get out, the results would be disastrous. I cannot help him, but my powers have grown enough to give subtle nudges where necessary. A push here, suppressed, these are the only things I can do for him, for now. Forgotten fact there, a slip of a tongue. I have dared to speak to him at last, but he is hostile towards me, demanding answers. Answers I do not feel I can yet give. It is my hope that, in time, this attitude will change. Strength. I feel reborn, empowered. Mating with the Uzumaki girl did something to me. I feel different. Not better, but not worse, either. Strange. Yes, I suppose that would be the word. I had long since devoured the last of Naruto's Baija chakra, but this, like comparing a puddle to a lake. What a difference. Even now I feel myself thrumming with energy, buzzing with chakra, and possessing no outlet for it. My might is returning. But I worry, what will I become once if I remember who I'm supposed to be? Every day I grow stronger. The return journey from Kiri takes weeks, and in these weeks I feel my strength begin to return in spades. Absorbing the Sanbi was an act of instinct on my part. I cannot truly say what compelled me to do so, only that I did. Like a child taking their first, tottering steps, I instinctively knew how to make the 3-tailed turtle a part of me, and that frightens me. Badly. Naruto's chakra is becoming separate from mine, to the point where I seldom feel its warmth any longer. We are no longer so tightly bound as we once were, and that upsets me. Does it have something to do with absorbing the Sanbi? Or was our separation a slower, more gradual process? One I failed to notice. What else have I missed? My psyche, once in pieces, is returning. Will it be for good or ill? He nearly lost the Uzumaki girl today. I helped him, I saved her. I, who absorbed the Yanbi during the chaos of that Fufugaku's assault, used most of its power to bring the girl back from the brink. I did so without thought, and oblivion, that I realized what I had done. I am not whole, but now I am even less than what I once was. All for the point of seeing him smile, of sparing him tears. Was then, as I nearly pushed myself into why? Why did I do that? Why do I care for him? He is my cradle, my nursery. His body has nurtured mine, albeit unkindly, as I recovered. What is he to me? I know I have no claim to him, nay, he does not even know me beyond a disembodied voice in the back of his brain. He owes me no loyalty, indeed, I don't think he would even understand if I admitted I had designs on him. It would be like a ghost trying to interact with the living, a fractured soul trying to find a place in the world that rejected it with no guarantee of finding happiness. Could I truly do that? Would you? I am a piece, a shadow, a ghost, a whisper of something that was once mighty. I am utter hubris. What am I? I was / am no one. Whatever I once was, I no longer am. I think I understand now. I am a piece of something, a shard broken off from the greater whole. Now this shard has its own consciousness, broken as it is. I know my name. I know what I like, and what I do not. And I know, that, unequivocally, have fallen head over heels for this buffoon. Am I content with this? Merely watching, never interacting, a silent pawn on the chessboard of life? Am I truly content to live out eternity like this? I wish it were so. Bonds. Are these the things that drive him? His morals are my morals. His goals, my goals. The motives that drive him, now my own. Any pretense of impartiality on my part can no longer be maintained. I know who I am, but not what. I suppose I never will. After all, even a broken piece of glass can still show one's reflection. I suppose that is my fate. For so long I have stayed my hand out of fear or breaking this delicate balance sustained by he and I. By the world. But I will not lay here, unnoticed, while he risks his life. No. For too long, my eyes have watched as he sacrificed and sweat and swore, but no more. My name is Kaguya Atsuki. And I will be silent no longer. The scariest man out there is not the psychopath who feels nothing, it's the man who knows the meaning of pain, for he is driven to cause hurt. Truer words have never been spoken. Now I want you to think about that for a moment before you condemn me. Men, what, pray tell, would you do if someone tried to take your love and butcher them? Women, if someone tried to take your beloved from you by some cruel, ill-begotten means? Would you stand there and let them? Let them pry the light out of your eyes, take the person, that part of your soul to whom you've devoted your light, your love, life and happiness? Of course not. You'd march right up there and kill that fucker. Or barring that, bloody them so badly they'd never think to do it again. That is the reason for my deeds today. I will be known as a monster after this, a manslayer, the Black Death in its purest form. Violent, chaotic, cold, unfeeling. It does not pause to give mercy, it does not stay a hand out of pity. It simply strikes and strikes and strikes again, until there is nothing left to kill. I write these words now as my memoir, in case this should go south, so that I will be known. My methods. My motives. My deeds. I am Uchiha Naruto, and I am a fraud. I don't expect to be understood. Only known. And to my enemies, I say thus, suffer me now. Well, that ought to do it. Humming softly, the Black Death closed his journal and sealed it away in his pack. Naruto was silent for a long moment, staring down at the quill in his hands. Then he sealed that, too, knowing that this might very well be his last entry was a sobering thought, one he had no desire to dwell on, but alas, his mind was not something so easily tamed. It raged in countless directions even as he sought to rein them in. A bucking stallion, as wild and fierce as ever, refusing to obey. Are you satisfied? And then there was the matter of his partner, Mount. Even at this altitude, he found he could hear Alduin, the lord of all dragons, most clearly. The most dreaded of all summons, the price for calling whom could only be paid in blood. Death. Perhaps he'd summoned him in a show of resolve, for once released, the word eater would not so easily return from whence he'd come. I've made peace as best I can. The once former blonde muttered. Remember our deal, whelp. I know. He sighed morosely. The village is yours. Do with it as you will. Well said. Riding atop the back of an almighty world eater was a feat few could lay claim to. Less a man writing in his diary amidst the writhing winds. He knew he was breaking his edict, but it couldn't be helped. Alduin would not be satisfied with the death of one man. Nor, in truth, would he. If he killed Anoki and left, Iwa would seek vengeance. There was, of course, a remedy for that. A foul, bitter pill, one that he was loath to swallow, but do so he must, even if it meant going against orders. Tonight, the earth burned. He could see the sun just beginning to set as they swooped down upon the outskirts of the village. Jagged rays of red and orange painted the sky red, heralding the coming of night. Naruto felt something twist inside of him as he gazed upon the scene, committing it to memory. By this time tomorrow, there would be only ash and dust. What have I become, that I would do this? He muttered. Where have I gone wrong? Steel your heart. Once more, that ghostly voice, a woman's voice, trailed in his ear. The end comes. The final act is nearly at hand. What you do here today will shape the fate of nations. With that, Naruto felt the last string of his patience finally snap. In the last week alone he'd been pushed almost non-stop, constantly being sent on missions, tasks, never once having a chance for peace and quiet. Now, he was in no mood for games. With found the presence, and plucked it out, forcing it to the surface, even as it struggled to wriggle away. Roar, he reached in, deep inside himself. Enough games. What are you? Very well. In a swirl of blue-white light, she was there. Naruto stared at her for a long moment, this pale, horned woman, ghostly, almost ethereal, and frowned. She looked little more than a ghost to his eyes, a wraith, her pale white orbs bumming on him. A long, deceptively weak-looking hand pushed through white hair as she gazed upon him, smiling. I am a whisper. I am shadow. I am a ghost. What men fear most. You nurtured me, raised me, helped me to grow inside of you until I became aware. Her white eyes cast him a long, loving look. I owe you much. I say again. What are you? He ground his teeth. A piece of something. She hummed, the sound like a faint symphony, just a small one. Her delicate fingers pinched together in emphasis. 4 days I dwelt within you. You were my savior. My protector. My guardian. I have been with you this whole time. Every act of kindness, savagery, brutality and mercy. I saw it all. Ah, but I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? To answer your first inquiry, my name is... Naruto leaned forward in anticipation. Kaguya, is that name supposed to mean something? I suppose not. She demurred with a sigh. Even I don't truly know what it means. I believe it is important, however. Ah, but we are here. He stared into the brush below, frowning. There's nothing down the look again. You will see the scouts. Oi, now the woman smiled. Just like that, he could see. Like the Byakugan, only 10 times more effective, the world was suddenly laid out before him. Naruto saw it all. Every enemy troop positioned well, even where they kept their armaments. This was vision that defied even the Sharingan, allowed him to see everything as if he were a god, not a man. The scouts were entirely vulnerable as the watch stalked them in the dark, and they didn't even know it. Wordlessly, he dropped from the back of Alduin, alighting nearest the southernmost man. See through my eyes, the white wraith murmured. Know your enemy. Then, in an impossible move, she strode forward, and whispered to the sentry, words in his ear. He's behind you, she said. The poor sod started. Who? Me. That was his last thought before a hand closed around the scout's face. Forfeit your mind. Hours later, in Iwa, night duty, they called it. Every soldier had to take his turn whether they liked it or not, standing in the storm with a sputtering torch. Someone had to watch. Had to stare into those shifting, deceitful mists and wonder if anyone was out there. It was a cruel, thankless task, but someone had to do it. Watching. Fearing whatever might be lurking just beyond their vision, waiting to strike. Shin knew there was. He knew it, but never spoke. Onoki laughed at such superstitions. Of course he did. He was the Tsuchikage. He was used to it, with his years of experience. He knew better than to fear it. Supposedly. Oi, his partner, Ki said, stepping up to the edge of a wall. Do you see anything out there? She scoffed loudly, annoyed. Of course he didn't. They stood with several dozen others on the perimeter of the village wall, watching from the outer keep wall a low fortification, perhaps 20 feet tall, that surrounded the grounds. Their job was to look for anything suspicious in the night, which, when you thought about it, staring at an endless sea of black, was incredibly boring. Who would be fool enough to attack Iwa now, anyway? After what had happened to Konoha, no one had dared challenge him hence. When you gave the strongest village a black eye, everyone tended to back off. Oh, everyone expected a reprisal sure enough, but that was Shi's job. They were the first line of the defense, ready to sound the alarm at the slightest sign of danger. Still, suspicious. That was the word that they used. It was all suspicious. It was night. That shifting mist against the black, that void made of darkness and stone. He had never trusted it. He was out there, he knew. The thing that was in the employ of Konoha. The Black Death. The man who had forced Suna and Kiri to ally with them. The man whose village they'd attacked, solely on the word of that masked man. Really, it was only a matter of time before it came here, to the land of Earth. The thought made Shi whimper. No, he was getting ahead of himself. Sending one man to assault a village, even someone like the Black Death, that was suicide. No sir, not happening. Something moved in the darkness. She stepped back, staring into the void, his heart beginning to flutter, hands beginning to sweat as he raised his blade. Wait? What was that noise? A distant flap of a sound, like wings beating on the far horizon. Like an eagle, or a bird. But that was impossible. For them to hear it at this range, it must have been a massive beast, gargantuan. Oh! He ran a hand through his flat, black hair, bright, dark eyes growing wet with a sudden fear. Tears. Oh no, no. There's something. Yeah, he said, squinting. I swear I see. Burn. He came, as she had always known he would, on a bestial, demonic roar of a howl. On the back of a fucking dragon. Like 1,000 gnats on a hot day, like a hail of burning blue arrows shot by an entire army. A shower of burning flame and death sprayed across the battlements, charring stone and bone. A wall of shimmering death, hundreds of fiery trails zipping through the night. Metal rang against stone and his fellows cried out in pain. Blood. Everywhere. Wherever he looked he saw it. Red, an endless stain of red. And then he saw it. It swooped over the battlements like a cloud, blown on the wind. A dragon, larger than any beast or summons he'd ever seen. Whatever it was, it drove people mad, sending them shrieking and gibbering like lunatics, scratching wildly at their faces as they burned aflame, clawing out their eyes, yipping madly. Inane beasts. Intruder. Ki bellowed out. Someone get on. We need the 5 tails. We need. She stepped back again away from the clouds of shadow and flame, retreating as Ki yelled out in alarm. He died halfway through the call, a kunai snapping wetly through his mouth, throwing out a chip of tooth as it proceeded out the back of his head. He collapsed and she stumbled away from the corpse, knowing that it was too late to run. He was going to die here, he realized. He was going to die here at the hands of the Black Death, and it was going to hurt. And no, he wasn't ready. And yelping, he ducked down, holding his head between his hands, daring to peek through them. Abruptly, the rain of kunai stopped. Silence in the air. Soldiers lay dying or groaning at his feet. Then it came. Whoosh! With a dull thud, Alduin crashed down onto the battlements, nearly flattening him. As it were, the sheer force of its landing drove Shi onto his back. A clawed hand crushed down to his right, preventing him from leaping off the wall and into the village. Then it happened. Black Death. A dark shadow of death in the night. A demon in the mist. He leapt neatly off the dragon's back with a rustle of cloth, landing neatly before him in a gymnast's crouch. A harsh thud resounded in Shi's ears and he looked you at it, and immediately wished he hadn't. Because he, the damned Uchiha, was here. He straightened slowly, and he found himself staring at a face set in stone, a rictus of a scowl leering furiously down at his behind a half-mask, covering his jaw, eerie, blank eyes peering down at him. He leered down at him, raising a hand, considering. And then he spoke, tugged down the mask, his words like rolling boulders. "Stand," he said. She squeaked and thrust at him with a knife, desperately. An angry hiss issued forth from his enemy at the weak effort. "I said stand. Die on your feet." Hi! Terrified and crying, he scrambled backwards on his hands, a drunken crab struggling to get away from this thing. But the Black Death reached down and grabbed him, forcing him to look into those blazing, coal-red eyes. A low growl snaked through the air between them as he was hoisted up, forced to look into those deathly eyes. "Anoki. Where is he?" "I don't know," he cried. "No one does. He hasn't been seen for weeks." She squeaked softly, ducking down as the Black Death's beast leaned forward, noxious fumes of napalm spraying his face. 2 final words issued forth from that hideous maw. "Too bad." Just like that he spread his arms and left him behind, alone amid the corpses of what had once been a squad of nearly 100 men. His knees gave and he collapsed into a boneless heap, sobbing. Oh, thank heaven he was safe. He never noticed the kunai in his gut until he'd bled out. Finally, blessedly, the terror left him. "Thank you." Naruto paused, glancing at his victims as he sailed over the village. Interestingly enough, these men and women almost seemed to be expecting him. Fascinating. Was Anoki ready for him? Had someone tipped him off? Or was he simply unwilling to lower his guard in a time of war such as this? Whether it stemmed out of negligence or incompetence, it mattered little to him. He needed to find a way to the cage without being detected, or things were sure to go amiss. In any case, leveling the village, as bitter a task as that was, came later. Like that guard he'd killed. Why had he done that? The man had been terrified, yet he died, like the rest. Some pills must be swallowed, no matter how bitter. Kaguya quoted. Frowning, and I tracked toward a nearby window. To conquer fear you must become fear. You must bask in the fear of other men. And men fear most what they cannot see. You have to become a terrible thought. Kaguya's voice rang in his mind, the words from before echoing in his skull like a clarion call. Like your surname. Your tiltal. You have to become an idea. Feel terror cloud their senses. Feel its power to distort. To control. And know that this power can be yours. Embrace your worst fear. Become one with the darkness. Focus. Concentrate. Master your senses. You cannot leave any sign. Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Uchiha got a wonderful, awful idea. What are you suggesting? Surrender. Eh? You wish to draw the cage out? Give up. After all this, he will almost certainly come to you. And so he did. Oi! With a loud shout, the Uchiha raised his hands, laughing as Alduin swooped past, raining hell on a nearby homestead. I surrender. When he woke, it was almost a surprise. He was sitting up, tied and bound, feeling as if someone had picked him up and slammed him against the wall a few times. Like he'd been shoved through a storm of blades. He groaned, sitting up in the darkness. In the dim light everything seemed almost unnaturally dark and he ached, oh how he ached, his head pounding. Okay. Guess it worked. He sat up further. It made his body feel even worse, but satisfaction dulled the pain to a slight edge as he sat there, blinking. The terrible agonies he'd suffered during his sleep instantly became apparent, gradually being replaced by the cool sensation of the cooled cobblestones beneath her legs. Aches and old pains resolved themselves and, blessedly, his mind came back to him. He flexed his arms, flinching slightly. Well, mission accomplished. Now, let's see if it paid off. Ah, and he's awake. He was not disappointed. Naruto looked up, and sure enough, there, behind barrier seal reinforced glass, Onoki was leering at him. Really, that was almost too easy. So here he is, the Great Black Death. He looked younger, Naruto realized, but that was to be expected. Did you really think you could kill me? Yes. Onoki looked down at him, and spat. Why are you here, brat? Because of that attack? It was just a fucking family. Silence reigned. Enough. Dispose of him. Scoffing, the old cage turned to storm away. Naruto exhaled softly. Onoki, slowly. Angrily. Like the breath of a great dragon, preparing to exhale, the entire room fell silent. Just a family? It was a whisper, slithering through the silence. In my darkest hour, they gave me hope. They reminded me that life is more than just necessary. Precious. Something to respected. Preserved. Defended at all costs. And you, on something as stupid as a whim, you. When he looked up, those eyes weren't red, they were white. No eyes. No irises. Just the blank slits of an angry god, pure and enraged, bottomless, the pits to hell. You tried to take that from me. A pair of red dots blossomed on his forehead, fingers sharpening into claws. Steal that from me. His voice deepened, as though another were speaking with him, no, through him. Kill that from me. Despite his best efforts, the Tsuchikage, Onoki, actually flinched back. Those eyes. What were those eyes? People have been asking me what I'm going to do to those responsible, Naruto snarled, his blood-soaked hair bleaching itself white as the helpless cage looked on, and until now, I really haven't had an answer for that. What am I? His head cocked aside, fangs flashing murderously as the last of his Ebon locks stained themselves in eerie, ashen gray, the color of dead snow. A savior? Killer? Murderer of men? His bound arms strained against the shackles and chains holding him, digging viciously into the barbed wire. Horns sprouted in his head, twin points of scarlet relief standing up amidst the white. However, in a single movement he scythed his legs out from under him, shattering the chair into splinters. I've realized something. It doesn't matter who I am. What I am. A trapped hand pressing against the floor, twisting upright against the blades, uncaring for the barbs that bit into his flesh. I'm here, and you're in my way. A flick of his wrist was all it took to sever the bindings entirely. The moment his hands were free, bodies began hitting the floor in gore, bloody succession. His face shoved up against the glass of the interrogation room and splintered it, eyes ablaze. The angry, newborn, horned god stalked towards Onoki, eyes aglow, twin coals in his skull. When he spoke, his voice was like rolling boulders scraping together. So you can tell me where the fuck Madurai is, or you can die screaming alongside him. Rationality deserted Onoki. Monster. No, I am the devil. I have heard. That was all he could think, even as a glowing blue hand burst through the barrier and closed around his face, burning him. His flesh. His mind. His very soul, stripping it bare. Naruto's eyes, no, not his eyes, the eyes of a being overshadowing him, acting through him, bored into his soul, searing him like the brand on that hand. 3 words ripped through him, flaying him apart as it sought for his knowledge. Suffer me now. And then he was gone.